bringing you an intense and thrilling atmosphere but might struggle to impress in qualities elsewhere. Alien Isolation is an experience that, for the most part, overstays its welcome. Hi, I'm Scotty, and this is Rating and Review, the show where I delve into games present and past to find what makes them great and not so great. At the end of the video, I'll give it a rating which will be put on the leaderboard of all the other games I've reviewed. Now let's get right into the video's story. Spoilers ahead.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo. Third officer reporting.
The story is mostly straightforward and will be an exciting addition to those that are huge fans of the Alien franchise. For those, like myself, who haven't delved into the films before, you may struggle a little with grasping onto the background of the story, but that obviously isn't the game's fault.
Yes, I have been in our transmission relay archive and I've done some decrypting.
Playing as Amanda Ripley, the daughter of Ellen Ripley from the films, was enjoyable, and I like the premise of the story being that she is in search of what happened to her mother many years ago. One thing that I think the game fails at doing here is not showcasing Amanda's desire to find what happened, and instead trails her on helping a handful of other people consistently throughout. Your journey through the game will introduce you to a large handful of characters that are there to aid Ripley or try to stop her on her journey. My investment in these characters was extremely minimal, and I didn't particularly care when any of them would eventually be killed. One factor that plays into this could be that the voice acting wasn't the best I've heard in gaming history and somewhat failed to bring out the raw emotion in these characters.
We'll both get what we want, right?
Have you seen Samuels? He's probably been up for hours.
I'll catch up with him.
First and foremost, it's important to note that Alien Isolation is a difficult game. Out of the 5 difficulty levels, I played on easy and still had a lot of trouble throughout. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of stealth, so having to constantly sneak around and wait for long periods of time in hiding spaces became tedious for me, even to the point where I'd try everything I can not to do stealth. The ways in which the alien interacts with the player throughout is equally as terrifying every time you encounter it. Although it can be frustrating when you see it enter a room when you are performing a simple task. The loud thuds and stomping you hear when attempting to avoid the alien's path is heart-racing, and I never once got terrified when I'd suddenly be found and chased. This suspense is also helped by the tracking device that you have that shows the current position of the alien within your vicinity. The beeping that increases in speed the closer it gets to you was always effective in building on the terror. Something else I enjoyed was how the alien learns and adapts throughout the game. This is great at forcing the player to switch up their playstyle and try other ways of escaping the xenomorph. The crafting mechanic was a welcome feature, but it did come with some drawbacks. I found I always was fully stacked up on one specific material and was always in need of others. This made the distribution of materials somewhat inconsistent. Lastly, I had no interest in collecting extras such as voice logs and notes, as I found that the majority of them did not help build upon the narrative and were just uninteresting. Despite problems with story and gameplay, the atmosphere in this game is something that's a standout. Throughout your journey, you will feel a great sense of abandonment and that disaster has struck the Sevastopol. Creative Assembly did an excellent job of creating an environment that was clearly once full of life before the alien had taken everyone out. The Sevastopol as a location itself was great and truly encompassed the futuristic and space-like nature of the game.
Someone shut everything off.
Also, the dark hallways and vents that forced the player to use their flashlight was extremely effective in creating an environment that fits the horror genre perfectly. The futuristic HUD with accompanying sound effects was also a great feature that enhanced not only the gameplay but the atmosphere by a substantial amount. The issues I had with gameplay and story were made so much worse due to the length of the game. It was far too long and ended up being such a huge detriment for me as I slowly began losing interest in the story and got fed up with gameplay mechanics that I had to repeatedly use. And whilst the alien remained terrifying all the way through, the encounters and stealth with it and other enemies did become tiresome. HowLongToBeat.com says that the main story will take you around 18.5 hours. If you're aiming for 100% completion, then you'll be playing for around 31.5 hours. There are 19 full missions that you'll play through to complete the main story. I think if it had been around 12 missions instead, then it would have been so much better.
Last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.
Alien Isolation delivers you a survival horror experience that will definitely keep you terrified throughout. With an amazing atmosphere and an equally impressive enemy, there is no doubt that you won't be impressed by what they have to bring. Sadly, there's a handful of issues here that can't go unnoticed. From tedious and repetitive gameplay, a story with characters that I had little to no investment in,
Taylor needs attention.
Medical's a no-go.
and most importantly, the length, that is far too long and diminishes the quality by a notable amount. And for all of these reasons, I'm giving the game a 5.8 out of 10. This means that it currently places last on the leaderboard by a huge gap. If you enjoyed this video, then please feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for all future rating and review videos. As always, I am Scotty, goodbye.